the wobble effect of the moon affecting the flooding on the earth. So we believe that the rising sea levels will cause this flooding on the coastal areas. So this wobble in the moon orbit is a natural phenomena, and the prediction is that it will cause record flooding in 2030s and onwards. And of course, this flooding will cause a lot of destruction, erosion, and damages. This is one example how our planet is under stress and how the sea level can, affect our coastal communities. So rising sea levels impact on climate change, and according to this study, this flooding will start as soon as 2030s. This increase will also accelerate the sea level rises because of the human-induced climate change. The NASA study is a warning that this nuisance flooding could become frequent fixture around the coastal communities all over the globe. And the low-lying countries will be more affected than the rocky coastlines. And high tides, of course, as we know, will get higher and low tides get lower. Global sea level rise pushes higher tides in only in one direction. That is the higher and greater flooding. So half of the 18.6-year lunar cycle counteracts the effect of sea level rise and high tides, and the other half increases the effect. So high tide flooding will move from a local issue to a regional issue to the global issue all over the world. Okay. Rising sea levels will cause coastline to be submerged, and the high tides will exceed at least 1 meter higher than the normal, and they will cause greater erosion and local flooding. This is one example of high king tide flooding Hawaiian Islands at the Honolulu airport, and this is the coastline that will be degraded. Because the erosion will take away the sand and the coastline and will damage the community. Here is an example of how the beaches will be affected, and it is imperative that we should save our beaches. So all over the world, thousands of types of these coastal flood occur. And now this study predicts an increased frequency of the nuisance floods that will be 4 to 5 times that number. So this is an example of a coastal city. This is Miami. So of course Miami is under a lot of the threat, and what will happen in 2030? It will be completely submerged. And so we have to keep an eye on our planet's changing, sea levels. And also we have to look at this particular cycle of Moon's 18.6-year orbit around the Earth that causes higher tides across the board. So of course the glaciers will melt, break off, and float away. And if it floods 10 to 15 times a month, a business cannot keep operating its operations, and parking lots will be underwater. People will lose their livelihood, their homes, their livestock, their jobs, because they cannot get to work. Seeping cesspools, septic tanks will become a public health issue. So in summer 2021 now, the moon is in the tide and flowing cycle right now, and there is no cause for concern of dramatic flood given sea level rises in Hawaiian Islands have not risen much. However, when the moon returns to the tight amplifying cycle, the seas will have had a nearly decade to rise. So it is recommended that the planning measures should begin now in order to mitigate the worst effect of the increase of these floods. And this is one example. Beaches will disappear, coastline will have to be anchored, um, and this is a cartoon. How does it will affect? So we have to be prepared and ready, plan, stand firm, and preparation makes sense.